Hey everybody, welcome back to another edition of Rapid Recap here at Inside Nebraska. He's Greg Smith and I'm Zack Carpenter, and today, Greg, a little different setup, which I think is the locked-in setup now for the rest of the way, the rest of the season, with Marcus Satterfield and Tony White speaking on Tuesday here in the new Nebraska media room, and then several players after. I think it was 5 or 6 players, some out in the hall, some in the actual podium area. But we had Ty Robinson, Jamari Butler, MJ Sherman, John Bullock, 4 defensive guys, and Billy Kemp. And there might have been 1 or 2 stragglers that we who were walking around for like a 2-3 minute interview. But those were the 5 main players. But Satterfield went second today. I think he went after White. Yep. But he went second, but still the number one talking point, as we expected it to be yesterday and today, the rest of the week. Would have been the number one talking point if not for Gabe Ervin, Ramir Johnson, Wright Boodle going out for the season. Number one talking points, quarterbacks between Jeff Sims and Heinrich Haarberg. Yeah, and I think it was interesting to hear. You know, Satterfield talked about today. You know, Marcus Sims. I knew I was going to mess it up. Unique New York, yeah, red leather, yellow leather. Jeff Sims was back at practice again for the second day in a row. Matt Rule said that he was out there on Sunday. He was back out there again today for the second practice in a row, and he took 50 to 55% of the snaps, is what Marcus Satterfield, the offensive coordinator, noted. The immediate reaction to that, though, on social media and on our insiders board was a little mixed bag, though, because I think that people are, like weirdly hoping that they just name Haarberg the starter. That's not going to happen. Even if he's going to start this game, I think that they're going to share time this week, and then they're going to at least say that they're evaluating it just for competitive reasons, if nothing else. So we'll see on that. He did say that he moved around a lot, and he moved around well. He said Satterfield called direct runs basically for Sims, that he would have to keep the ball on those runs and see how he moved, and he responded well. So we'll see kind of where it goes from here. Yeah, I mean, it's that classic case of the Nebraska fan base, or any fan base for that matter. It's not exclusive to just Nebraska, where the starting quarterback performs poorly. Well, get the backup guy in there, see if he does well. The backup quarterback's always the most popular guy in town, as the saying goes. But in this case, the backup quarterback did come in and played to an entirely different tune, different just overall performance. But I think mindset, he played differently than the starter did. But always have to keep in mind, NIU had one of the worst defenses in the country statistically. So that's where it's not as if just because Haarberg had this great performance, or outstanding, maybe not great, but outstanding performance from Kearney Catholic. I want to make sure I get that in there, because I mispronounced it on our Rapid Recap. And I kept refreshing the YouTube comments because I knew it in the moment. I'm like, I definitely mispronounced Kearney Catholic. I did. So Haarberg from Kearney Catholic, I'm going to keep saying that over and over. It's not as if just because of that he was going to be locked into the starting quarterback spot, and we're seeing that play out this week with them sort of splitting reps, splitting snaps. But the targets, whoever the quarterback is going to be throwing to on Saturday against Louisiana Tech, the targets there, the receivers in this offense, haven't seen many get too much separation, or at least not for those explosive plays, working on creating more of those and getting younger receivers in the mix was another topic of discussion today. I feel like we've been talking about this for like 3 weeks at least now, and it was definitely a topic back in fall ball as well. When are those freshman receivers going to get out there? Namely, it started with Malachi Coleman, who was mentioned by Marcus Satterfield today, who said he showed great toughness out there, to the point to where, Pukegate is back, because Malachi threw up out there. But then he came right back in and said, I want to keep going. And Coach Satterfield did say that he thinks that he was trying to show his toughness by wanting to stay out there, which I think is a great sign. A lot of times it's hard to make that transition from being like the man in high school who no one can really cover, and no one's just going to match you athletically, to actually coming out here and being with guys on par with you. And so sometimes that can be difficult, and the toughness becomes a thing too. To see him do that or hear about that actually is kind of a positive. Now you just want to see if he can learn the plays and be out there, because it does sound like you're asked a lot of you to be a receiver in this offense to get on the field early. Yeah, and I think the young receiver, the freshman receiver talk when fall camp opened the first couple weeks, I think a lot of people, including myself, got ahead of ourselves as far as when the receivers were going to be getting in there, because you hear from Jeff Sims, you hear from Rule how we're going to need those guys to play early, but how many snaps they're going to get early, I think, is something that Rule kind of backtracked like the next week after he said that around the second, third week of fall camp.
Forth on that quite a bit.
I think it was probably more of a thing of they're going to play early so that they can get that first taste, and then we can use them hopefully later in the season. I don't know. That's sort of the vibe I've gotten.
Is, you know, and I agree with you on that, but we've seen that though, right? Like it's been in a different acceleration pace on defense, right? So they have been, and we even heard several players today talk about on defense in particular about how they knew that they'd get some of those young guys rotating in on defense because Coach Rule believes in that. So it's not as if they actually are practicing that. It's just whether or not the receivers are the ones that it might be a little bit harder situation for them to kind of pick it up, even though it feels like you look around college football and you're seeing younger and younger receivers around the country, but it's not an apples to apples for every system and every player. Right?
Do you think that's a product of the Tony White system is looser and like it doesn't have as many restrictions? It's just asking you to use your athletic traits, your speed, and be physical, fly around, as they say, and then the SAT system is much more complex with timing and the different calls they have?
Yes, I could definitely see that. And I thought my antennas went up when I can't remember if it was Rule or Satterfield that said that it's tough to be those backup wide receivers because you technically have to learn all three of the other positions. Like when you hear that, like it just sounds like a lot for a freshman that did not. And by the way, none of those guys arrived early.
Yeah,
right?
all six
they
were.
all came in the summer, and so they're behind as far as getting ahead to be able to then get on the field early. And I think that's why you've seen a difference. Those guys that enrolled early, you've seen a lot of them. We'd have to go back and chart it, but I feel like almost all of the early enrollees, except for maybe the offensive linemen, have played already.
Yeah, and even then, Gunnar Gotula got in there. He's now the number 3 left tackle. Now Teddy Prohaska back and potentially more snaps. But yeah, you're right. Cam Lenhart, Prince Will, and I believe I remember those two. I don't want.
Dwight Boodle played before the unfortunate injury.
Yep.
So. See. Maverick Noonan was on track to play before his injury. So
I want to point my own mistake out with my own with Maverick Noonan. This randomly popped in my head the other day. After the spring game, during the spring game, I thought there's no way. Like he showed some good things, but I was still thinking there's going to be a learning curve. It's probably still going to take him another year to see significant snaps in this defense. And I thought I said that multiple times, and then throughout fall camp and then throughout this early part of the season, it's like retroactively looking back, it's like, no, I would have absolutely been wrong because Maverick Noonan would have absolutely had a place on this defense, just like a lot of the younger guys you're seeing. But speaking of that defense, a couple of guys to point out today was Nash Hutmacher and Jabari Butler, because Nash, there are a couple of different quotes on him from Tony White saying it's the best he's seen him play, and Ty Robinson saying this is the best I've seen Nash play, and Tony White saying I think he's one of the best defensive linemen in the country. Yeah,
which I thought was a huge deal. And first of all, it feels great for Nash to be able to get out there and do what he's doing, but to hear your coaches and your teammates kind of backing you up is great as well. Ty Robinson talked about it as a proud big brother moment because he's seen Ty work, and it feels weird, but yes, Ty is one of the older veterans on the defense, but he doesn't seem like he's that old, so it's just kind of a weird deal. But then also, I think we're starting to see, kind of remember back to when Nash Hutmacher was being recruited. He was a major deal, and so even as a 3-star guy, like everybody could see the potential there. Kind of came down between Nebraska and Wisconsin. People wanted to desperately keep him away from Wisconsin because they thought he'd be a beast in that system. You're now seeing why that is, and he's playing up to that potential, and it's really good to see for him.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think we all said last year was the first year Nash really started making some waves, and then this year is like not the make or break it year, but this was going to be the year like that we had thought we might see from Ty Robinson going into last year. This is I think a make it or break it year for Ty Robinson the rest of the way these last 9 games, but Nash was that third year, that pivotal year in a player's development to see what he's going to be, and he's shining through so far.
Yeah, but here's the thing. It's funny, I'm laughing because when you said it's a pivotal time now for Ty Robinson, you know what actually helps Ty Robinson a lot? Nash Hutmacher playing the way that he is.
Right.
So now when they play games, he's going to be a guy that offensive coordinators say, okay, we've got to dedicate attention towards him, and now everybody else gets to eat, right? You can only put so many blockers on everyone else. So now Ty Robinson gets to be one-on-one. Then when Cam Lenhart is fully healthy, he gets to be one-on-one. And here come the other guys. I think the trickle slowdown effect there will be really nice, especially because he's playing from that interior and getting pushed from there.
Yeah, and I mean, there are a billion defensive performances from that NIU game to sift through. Nash Hutmacher was probably the one that took the cake. He was my defensive player of the game. I think he was most people's after career high 6 tackles, 2.5 tackles for loss, both career highs, and the sack he forced on Rocky Lombardi. But between him, yeah, like you said, him taking up that space in the middle, taking on double team. Steve Marek actually heard him during the middle of the game. He just says it kind of under his breath. He's just like, Nash Hutmacher is doing the Lord's work down there in the trenches. I just started laughing. I'm like, yeah, sort of that unsung. He had been that unsung hero almost, taking attention away from the other guys. But Saturday night against NIU, he got that recognition. He's getting it this week. But he was one of several defensive performances to highlight. Jamari Butler as well got I believe his first career sack Saturday night. And I wanted to highlight those two guys because if Cam Lenhart, who we did not have an official update on his sprained ankle injury and whether or not he'll be good to go against Louisiana Tech, it could mean a bigger emphasis, more snaps for Jamari Butler, who is now locked into that defensive end. He's no longer listed as a jack on the depth chart. He did say that DN's kind of like Jack, just not dropping back in coverage as much, but I think we're officially locked into Jamari as a defensive end going forward. He could have a big role coming up as soon as this coming Saturday.
And even if Cam Lenhart's back, you probably don't want him going full bore like with as many snaps as they had, though they've done a great job of rotating those guys. So I think the biggest compliment you can have for everyone else, Jamari included, is once Cam went out, you didn't notice a drop-off, right? Like, we didn't notice right away that he was out. And so that's a really good sign moving forward for this defense as well.
Yeah, and you're going up against an air raid in Louisiana Tech, so it could be a big night for the pass rushers if they're getting to tee off, especially if that Nebraska offense can hit on a couple more explosive plays, or just you don't necessarily have to hit on explosive plays, just avoid the turnovers and be more efficient on offense. And if you have a two touchdown lead, 17-point lead, something like that, you're going to see those pass rushers potentially start to tee off a little bit. But I think that's all I had from today's press conference, offense, defense. Again, quarterbacks were a big point of emphasis, but did you have any last words to add?
One thing is there's been a lot of defense talk, and rightfully so, and we'll continue to have defense talk because they've been playing so
It's exciting.
Well. Yeah, it's an exciting time for them. It really, truly is. And Tony White mentioned something, defense coordinator, at the podium today about how a couple days ago he got to have some time with a bunch of the players, and kind of they brought their girlfriends over. He said Nash, Luke Reimer was there, and a bunch of other guys, and he had this big kind of panoramic photo with all of them, and he said would go into his office because he said that those are kind of those special moments in coaching that allow you to get to know guys kind of off the field, and it makes it that much more fun and enjoyable to coach them on the field. So I think it's just another data point to show just that family atmosphere that they are creating, and that Matt Rule, it definitely comes from the top down. It comes from Matt Rule first, and everyone's kind of embracing that, and I think that makes them closer as an entire team.
Yeah, we're seeing those cultural foundations being laid from all the way back in spring during those recruiting weekends. It's really when we started hearing about it the most, and all the way up to now with that story that Tony White shared. So, and like Rule said, he's sort of hoping that first win is sort of allowing people to buy into belief and building confidence as they build up a cultural foundation for this program moving forward. But that's it for us from today. I think the next media availability, no more Wednesday availabilities anymore. Thursday is going to be the next one with Matt Rule. Lightning round where he'll...
It's not even lightning anymore.
Yeah, I know.
Well, Matt Rule does not do any... When he talks, it is not lightning.
He talks at a lightning quick pace.
Yeah, he says
it's hard,
a lot of words.
It's harder to transcribe Matt Rule.
If you see this.
It takes a lot longer to transcribe Matt Rule than it does a lot of other coaches because of how fast he talks, and he does say a lot. And a lot of times, we've said a million times, it seems like it's coach speak when you're hearing it live, then you listen back, it's like, oh wow, that wasn't coach speak. He just gave us all everything we needed to know. You just gotta go through the details and read between the lines. So we'll be reading between the lines at InsideNebraska.com. And you can check out our coverage, written coverage from today's pressers. We'll have that tonight, tomorrow. Tonight, Matt Rule is speaking on the radio, Huskers Radio Network, around 6 o'clock. So we'll have that, and we'll have more coverage as they gear up for Louisiana Tech this Saturday. So for Greg Smith, I'm Zack Carpenter, and we'll catch you guys again next time.